Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Thursday. The weekend is very, very nearly here. I hope you're having a good week wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Football is back today. The internationals start. England in action, Belgium and Italy in action. So we've got plenty of Arsenal players to focus on over the next 24 hours or so. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys as always. Thank you very much for sending them in. We'll go through that towards the end of the show as well. We'll talk about the Arsenal women. What a horrible, horrible result that was for them in the Champions League last night at Bayern Munich. So we'll talk about that and the potential impact it might well have on Jonas Eidevall. No doubt Jonas is under pressure now. Big, big game for him at the weekend against Chelsea. We're going to talk about William Saliba. I know myself and James spoke about it in Inside Arsenal Extra Time yesterday. Those rumours with the links, shall we say, with Real Madrid. Lots of reaction from you on that. So we're going to talk about that as well. But what I wanted to start on today was just sort of touch on what I think could be quite a big boost for Arsenal going into the Bournemouth game on Saturday week. Now, usually the international breaks are very, very disruptive in terms of who goes away and how many players are left in the squad. But Arsenal have actually got quite a lot of senior players, one way or the other, staying at London Colney during this international break. Some rehabbing, obviously, some on their way back from injury, some just not called up. But I think it gives Mikel a very good period of time. Now, he gave the players some time off at the start of this week. They'll be just beginning to filter back to London Colney now, and then training will really, really sort of start in earnest again on Monday ahead of that game against Bournemouth. So they've had a nice little break, some of them, the ones who haven't had to be rehabbing because of injury issues. Then they're going to come back, and then there's going to be a lot of focus on that Bournemouth game. And I think it could be a big boost for us. And when you can sort of compare it to them and how many players at Chelsea have gone away or Man City have gone away. I mean, you look at Arsenal, Neto still around. Timber, White, Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, Jorginho, Partey, Odegaard, Jesus, Sterling, Havertz, all still around. Miles Lewis-Skelly as well. So a lot of the first team squad are still at London Colney. And I think that could be a big boost for Arteta and for Arsenal because it gives him a lot of time, free time, to really work with them and prepare for that Bournemouth game. So normally the international breaks are really horrible and you're sort of away, you're just sort of sitting back, crossing your fingers and no one gets injured. Arsenal obviously had to endure a really difficult international break last time. But certainly with some players like Sterling, Jesus specifically, who I think Jesus definitely he probably needs a bit of an arm around the shoulder at the moment just to try and restore confidence and really sort of work on some of the things that aren't quite working for him on the pitch right now. And this 2-week period might be really, really important for that. He doesn't have to worry about Brazil. He doesn't have to worry about anything. He's had a little bit of time off at the start of this week. And then over the weekend and from Monday onwards, Arteta, the coaching staff, can really sort of work with him. You'd hope build his confidence level up again. Same with Sterling. Give Sterling another couple of weeks to really adjust to Arsenal's way of thinking as well. You can clearly see with Sterling that he's working his way into settling down at Arsenal. And, you know, Havertz, Partey, yes, they've dropped out from injury and illness, but I fully expect they're going to be available for the game against Bournemouth. And I just think this could be a really beneficial couple of weeks for Arsenal. More beneficial than it normally would be during an international break, and certainly more beneficial than it might be for some of their key rivals. So it'll be really interesting to see just what Arsenal's team turn up in that game against Bournemouth after the international break, because usually after them, they take a little bit of time. You watch the games, you're like, oh, this is the classic post-international break game. But I just wonder with Arsenal if we're going to look at them and feel they might be a little bit sharper, some of the players anyway. And the injured players and the rehab players, it's certainly going to give them a big boost in terms of getting those guys back fit. Your Ben Whites, potentially your Urian Timbers, definitely your Havertz and your Thomas Parteys. Come back after this break for the Bournemouth game. Hopefully the squad is going to be looking in really, really good shape and they will look back on this couple of weeks. And I really think Arteta and the coaching staff will look back on this couple of weeks and think they've been really beneficial from an Arsenal point of view. Right, on this, I don't know if you've seen it yet. Erling Haaland was doing a press conference yesterday ahead of Norway's game. Said some nice stuff about Martin Odegaard actually in it. He also was asked about the Gabriel incident and the Arsenal Man City game and his reaction afterwards with Arteta, the whole stay humble stuff. This is what he had to say about Gabriel. He said it was in the heat of them, and this, he threw the ball at Gabriel's head in the aftermath of the equaliser right at the end when Gabriel wasn't looking. He said it was in the heat of the match and a bit of everything happened in that match. What happens on the football pitch happens on the pitch. That's the way it is. I don't regret anything in his life. That last line he was asked, do you regret what you did? And he said, I don't regret anything in life. And it's fair enough, to be honest. Look, yes, it was a bit stupid thing to do, but look, I think back to some incidents where you remember it was Arsenal versus Wigan way back when at the start of the Emirates era, and Arsenal scored 2 late goals to win 2-1. Wigan would be time wasted the entire game, and then they scored 2 very late goals. Thomas Rosicky scored the winner late on. I remember Henry getting the ball out the net and offering the ball to Chris Kirkland, who was the goalkeeper, who'd been wasting loads of time. And Henry sort of offered it to him. And, was it a sporting thing to do? No. But in the heat of the battle, in the frustration of what had gone on before that, you could kind of understand why Henry did it. And it was pretty funny, to be fair. And the Haaland one, I had no real issue with. I think my only main issue with it is he did it when Gabriel had his shirt over his head, so he couldn't actually see him. By the time Gabriel had sort of looked around to see what had happened, Haaland had already sort of legged it off. You'd almost want him to do that and then stay there and take the sort of response from Gabriel sort of eye to eye rather than running off and heading back to the line. But I don't think there's too much in it. It was just a classic football thing. And the key thing is that there's no doubt that Gabriel will remember that. I know afterwards he said, look, it all kind of similar to Haaland. He said it all happens, but we'll welcome our place in a few months' time. But he'll remember that. There's no doubt he's got that stored away in his mind, and he'll use that as extra motivation for that game when it does rock around in February, I think it is. Asked about the Arteta incident, he said it was a very emotional game, but they're all in different ways. It's part of football, part of sport, and after that game, we move on. See, that was a bit I had more of an issue with. It wasn't so much the Gabriel stuff, it was more the Arteta stuff, because that was just out of nowhere, really. The whole stay humble, who wasn't being humble in that? It was one player and it was Haaland. It wasn't anyone else. That was more of the issue I had with Haaland after that game rather than the Gabriel stuff. But yeah, he's finally broken his silence on that. And it's let's move on now and wait for that return game at the Emirates, because it's going to be a little bit spicy. Right, William Saliba. So if you haven't seen Inside Arsenal Extra Time yesterday, myself and James spoke quite at length about the Saliba to Real Madrid links. Reported in France yesterday that Real Madrid have made Saliba their top priority for the summer, and they're willing to pay whatever it takes, apparently, to get him out of Arsenal in the summer. We both had our say on it. It's all this is I said at the time, it is an inevitable story. The Saliba, Real Madrid, it's just always going to be in newspapers. It goes back to the Vieira Real Madrid days. You could just tell that this was going to happen with William Saliba. And as I said yesterday, I'm not stupid enough to ever think that Saliba is going to see out his career at Arsenal. At some point, he is going to go. It will happen. I'm absolutely convinced of it. For me, it shouldn't happen now. He definitely needs another contract at Arsenal, and then get into your mid-20s, late 20s, and think about what else is there. I think for Arsenal, it's really, really important. You do not want to lose William Saliba at this point in time. You want to continue to build this team, and Saliba's obviously got to be central. That he's the best centre back in the world, in my opinion, already, and he's only going to get better over the next couple of years. So one day, I'm sure he will probably go to Real Madrid, because he's the best centre back in the world, and Real Madrid normally end up signing the best players in the world. But for now, the biggest thing Arsenal should be doing is laying the groundwork for getting him a new contract. He'll have 2 years left in the summer. Ideally, you want the contract signed before it gets to the summer, because then it takes any uncertainty out the window. Real Madrid have to look elsewhere if they do want to sign a centre-back, and they know that he's absolutely committed to Arsenal. I've had some people say, he's got an option. It's 2 years an option. It's not. He's only got 2 years. There's no option included in the contract he signed a couple of years ago. It's just a straight 4-year deal. So you want those talks absolutely happening now, so that if you get to the end of this season, even if he hasn't signed, you're still a long way down the line, and you're getting a good impression of whether he is going to sign or not. Because he shouldn't be going at this point, 100%. You continue, you have at least one more contract out of William Saliba before you even entertain the idea of letting him go. Obviously, if Real Madrid come in and put £200 million on the table in the summer, then it's probably going to be something Arsenal have to consider, just because it is a business at the end of the day. But I can't imagine Real Madrid are going to do that. This is what you guys have been saying in relation to it yesterday. Soy Sauce Girl says this talk around Saliba is quite a useful barometer to consider where Arsenal are in Arteta's experiment. If we win the league, Saliba will want to stay. If we win nothing this season, Saliba might be tempted to seek an early exit. But if he goes, that could have a domino effect on other players deserting us. So although all of this is speculation, it is a warning. We must win to keep our winners. MHE87 says, I do not want to lose Saliba. Offer him the highest paid centre-back money, do whatever it takes. However, if he doesn't sign a new contract by July the 1st and Real Madrid are offering massive money, I think you have to sell while he has 2 years left on his contract. Maybe not for Neymar money, approximately 185 million, but at least 150 million. It's not as good as having Saliba Gabriel partnership, but without buying a single new player, you've already have a Calafiori, Gabriel, White, Timber back four with Tomiyasu and Kivior as versatile depth. That's a pretty great starting point to build from with an extra 150 million to work with. A couple more here. One says, in regards to Madrid's interest in Saliba, let's use KDB and Rudiger as examples. Madrid had interest in KDB, but Man City were better than Madrid or Barca. Rudiger left when Madrid showed interest because Chelsea then was not as good as Madrid. So let's say Arsenal start winning titles and trophies. Saliba will want to stay without a doubt. I hope Arsenal be among the top 2-3 teams in the world soon. Any player wants to stay or play for us. Chris says, do we need the money now? I'd run down his contract if I had to. So lots of reaction there. There was plenty more of it as well in the comments from yesterday's video. All good points. I would say in terms of Chris's there at the bottom, do we need money now? I'd run down his contract. I don't think you can let Saliba go as a free transfer at 23 years old. It would just be, if it gets to a point when you're convinced he is probably going to want to go, you can't let him go for free. You've got to take something and get some money for him. 100%. It would be awful otherwise, because you've got to reinvest that money. I think Arsenal are very well stocked with excellent defenders right now. No doubt about that. But I still want Saliba to stay. If Arsenal want to become the best team in Europe, and that is the aim, that is the ambition under Arteta, and they want to be top dogs. They want to win the Champions League. They want to win the Premier League, not once, but continue to win the Premier League. You can't lose William Saliba. He's got to be front and central of that plan. And that's why, for me, I think it is absolutely essential you get a new contract sorted for him, rather than, potentially receiving a hell of a lot of money for centre-back, but then losing, in my mind, the best centre-back in the world. Thank you, everyone, for getting in touch on that. Talking about Saliba, he's in action for France a little bit later on today, playing Israel in Budapest. It's Italy versus Belgium. So we've got Calafiori versus Trossard. We've got England in action. So Rice and Saka against Greece. Awful news about George Baldock, who passed away yesterday in Greece. I'm sure they'll be paying respects at England a little bit later on today. Just absolutely awful news. That was playing for Panathinaikos now, obviously a huge career over here with Sheffield United. And Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel in action overnight as well for England, for Brazil. I wish they played for England. For Brazil over in Peru in their World Cup qualifier. In terms of Calafiori versus Trossard, Calafiori's been speaking ahead of that game, and he said, jokes aside, he said, I told Leo to be careful. He was saying if they come up against each other and they need to tackle each other. Jokes aside, he's a very strong player and also a great friend, but I'll try and bring home the 3 points for Italy. He was then asked about how things are going at Arsenal. He said, it's going very, very well. In 6 months, it will be even better. You'll see. My life has changed being at Arsenal. I can feel the responsibility and I like it. I love when people expect many things from me. I think that was a key line there in that quote when he said, in 6 months, it will be even better. You'll see. And when I look at Calafiori now, all I'm doing is envisaging what sort of player he's going to be like in 6 months to 12 months, because I think that is so, so exciting. He's clearly got unbelievable attributes right now, and I love watching him play. But you can see there are a few deficiencies there that need to be worked on defensively, and getting caught out and maybe diving in a little bit too early. Oh, sorry, my voice went then. Kind of similar to Gabriel at a time. And then you look at the defender Gabriel is now compared to what he was maybe 18 months ago, and it is worlds apart. The errors have been cut out almost completely. And that's what I see with Calafiori in 12 months' time. I think it's a really, really exciting prospect to see what sort of defender he is going to turn out to be. Right, just touching on the women now. I mean, this was an awful result, really awful result, 5-2. It was a great game to watch in terms of a spectacle, but the last 25-minute capitulation from Arsenal was really, really bad. Harder obviously scoring a hat-trick, I think, in about 13 minutes for Bayern as they ran out 5-2 winners. The disappointing thing was Arsenal, they started well. I thought they deserved the lead they got. You kind of felt like the goal was coming. It got it, and then just to concede right on half-time was a real hammer blow. It was a brilliant header, but it was still a real blow to concede right on half-time. You then go behind, you then get yourselves level from the corner, 2-2. You're looking at a good result there with sort of 20, 25 minutes to go. It's like, can you just hold out for the draw, whatever? But to just press the self-destruct button, they weren't difficult. If Bayern had worked really hard for the goals, you're like, okay, fair enough. But they really didn't have to work hard for their goals as well. Defensively, Arsenal were all over the place. They just look a little bit confused right now. And on the back of the result against Everton at the weekend as well, there is real pressure on Jonas Eidevall here. You have to say he's not the most popular. Now you can see that he's a lot of the support that he has, certainly with the fan base, is beginning to go. He's definitely under pressure. I think the Chelsea game this weekend, I know lots of people have been saying he shouldn't even be in charge for the Chelsea game. They should make the decision before then. I'd be surprised if they do. I'm not saying they won't, but I'd be surprised if they do. But I think the Chelsea game is really important for him this weekend. If you end up on the wrong side of another very poor result in that game, then you almost feel like the pressure is going to become unbearable on Jonas Eidevall, and Arsenal might well have to make a decision on him because the season has not started the way the club would have wanted to. And this was a real poor result, one that went around Europe. And, you don't want to be on the end of that. And for Jonas, he's definitely under pressure, I would say. Okay, just moving on to some questions and comments now before we move on and end this one today. Vet Para says, on Gabby Jesus, I think the problem is I'm struggling a bit with what identity he is as a player right now. With Havertz, he's amazing at finding space off the ball and doesn't lose a duel. Trossard is the best finisher we have. Martinelli brings bags of energy and effort. I think what I liked about Jesus in the first 6 months was the chaos he created, but that Arsenal team was also just more chaotic than the one we have now. At the moment, I believe his best attribute is his dribbling and beating players one-on-one, but I think that almost makes him more suitable to be a wide forward and not necessarily a central striker. I've not given up on him, but I think he needs to have a real think about his skill set, identity, and play to his strengths. Yeah, I mean, all good points there. I like Jesus out wide, I have to say. I think he does that job very well. I think he did it well at times last season when it was asked upon him. I also think, though, I keep coming back to it. I know I'm repeating myself with Jesus, but I would just like to see him after scoring a couple of goals, just to see if we see a different Jesus. I just do wonder at the moment if he's playing a little bit with the weight of the world on his shoulders, and if he does just get himself a couple of goals, a couple of really nice bits of play, that you just see those shoulders, the weight on his shoulders just lift a bit, and you see him start playing a little bit more freely. I'd just love to see that right now. The issue is he going to get the minutes to do that at the moment? He had the opportunity at the weekend. It didn't happen for him. That's just increased the scrutiny and pressure on him even more. So it'll be interesting after the international break to see just how much Mikel Arteta decides to use him. But very good points. Thank you very much, Vet Para. Aaron says, with Arsenal clicking so well now, do you even think Odegaard and White should fight for their starting places after their return? Never would have thought we would cope so well without Odegaard and White, both of whom played most of the games last season. But Odegaard walks back into this team. I'm sorry, he does. I don't know, there's other people who have sort of mentioned this, or we look better with Trossard there and stuff like that. It's just, no, not for me. Odegaard walks back into this Arsenal team as soon as he's fit. He's that important to how they play. I think this has been a really great few weeks for Arsenal without him, because it's shown that they can play in a different style. They can win games without their captain, but he comes back into the team for me. White has obviously got a real battle on his hands to get the shirt back off Timber's playing so well, but I also think certainly when it comes to the fullbacks and the demands that are put on them, it's much easier to rotate as the fullbacks. And so it's not like he's not going to play, or whoever doesn't start, whether that be Timber or White, it's not like they're not going to get many minutes. They will get minutes as well. I think it's a little bit different to the scenario with Martin Odegaard. But yeah, for me, Odegaard comes straight back into this team. Josh Clanson says, hi, Charles. I'm curious to see if we can finally bring home a Champions League trophy. Will there be additions to our statues at the Emirates? I know it's still early days to discuss it. Still much to prove. What are your thoughts on the requirements for having more added? Surely Saka would be in line for one if he carries on with his current attitude, form, and alignment with Arteta's vision of AFC. Look, you can't build statues for players who are currently playing for the club, because you just never know what's going to happen in the future. What if Saka ends up having a bit of a fallout with Arsenal at some point in a few years and goes to Manchester City, or if Chelsea become the richest club in the world between now and then, and he ends up leaving for Chelsea? And I know you don't even want to think about it, but it's football. Things happen. Who would have thought Robin van Persie would have gone to Man United the way he did? Who'd have thought in the middle of the Invincibles run that Ashley Cole goes to Chelsea in the way he did? So you just can't build statues for players who are still playing, because you never know what the future holds. And it would look very stupid if you built a statue of a player who then ends up going to a rival and becomes a bit of a hate figure. Hopefully that would never happen with Bukayo Saka, but it's just an example of why you can't do it. In terms of current requirements for more to be added, I still think Ian Wright has to have a statue. I can't believe he hasn't yet. I would love to be a joint statue of David Rocastle. I just think that would mean so much. And I think, Ian Wright is just a person who is absolutely loved at Arsenal and is an absolute national treasure almost. And he just deserves a statue in my mind, and it would be lovely if it could be a statue incorporated with David Rocastle as well. So that would be my choice for the next statue to be unveiled at Arsenal. And that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. And listening, of course, on podcast if you're not watching on YouTube. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time as always. I'll be back again tomorrow to do it all over again. Anything you would like me to discuss in that show, anything you've heard on this one that you've agreed with, disagreed with, or anything completely new you want me to discuss, get into the comments section, leave your question or your comment, and I'll pull some of them together as always and get them included. Until then, have a great Thursday, everyone. Enjoy the football later. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.